Hey folks, I'm going to tint the windows on my car here, and I've done it many times, and I want to show you the tips and tricks on how to do it so that you end up with a product that doesn't have bubbles in it, how to make this look right. So the first step is making sure you have the right tools. This is a kit I bought off of Amazon. I mainly use this squeegee. It's really handy for putting the tint into edges. And then this little rubbery squeegee works great for pulling out the bubbles, but it's got other things, other squeegees and little tools in here. Really important to have the right tools. These make a world of difference. Tip number 2 is cleaning the window. You need a really clean window, but you don't use Windex or anything like that. This is just a mixture of distilled water and a drop, literally a drop of baby shampoo, the No Tears baby shampoo. It works great for cleaning, but the other tip about cleaning, you're going to spray the window, and I've got one of these kitchen type scrubbies where you've got this rough side. I'm going to do this to both sides, but the inside and the outside, but take that scrubby side and scrub the window really good to get on any of the dirt that hangs on there, bugs. Do the same on the inside. I'm just going to squeegee this clean and then do it one more time and squeegee it, but that's to get any of that residue off so it doesn't get trapped, especially on the inside. It doesn't get trapped between your tint and your window. Tip number 3 is coffee filters. These things are great for a number of things. These are lint-free cloths. So as you're cleaning your window, there's going to be a few drops, things left over, and you're going to want to clean this so good, especially on the inside, and look through. Use coffee filters, and you'll use these later in the job as well, but use coffee filters to wipe excess water off. I'm going to use it to wipe any of the excess water off inside, and like I said, we'll use this later in the process too, but that way there's no lint left on the window and get trapped between the tint and the window. These are invaluable. Now I'm going to lay up this tint on the outside of the window just so I can cut it to the right shape, and I'll show you what I do there. But the next tip is, as I unroll this straight edge on the bottom of the manufactured tint, I'm going to align that on the bottom, so once I get the bottom nice and straight, it's one less thing I have to cut when I have it laid up there. And you want the bottom edge of this tint to be about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch below this seal here, so that it always remains below the inside seal as your window goes up and down. You don't want that to peel it off. So let me do this. You saw me spray the same cleaning solution. We're going to use this the whole time on the window as I put up this piece of tint, just so that it stays on there and stays on the window. And what you can also do when you do that, spray some water on there and then just squeegee it onto it. This is just to hold it to the window as we trim it. And if you see down here, the bottom edge of this tint is just below the seal. I don't have to now cut that edge. What I'm going to do now, just to make this a little more manageable, is I'm going to cut off this excess. Set that off to the side. The next 2 tips are, I'm going to have to trim right along the forward edge of this window here and on the back edge as well. So the tip is to use a straight edge. I found some, my wife's cutting board, flexible cutting board for fabric. You want something that's not paper based, that way it doesn't soak up the water on the outside. And I'm going to just place that where it needs to be and then take my razor blade and cut there. And I'm going to do the same on the back side so that I get a nice straight line and the tint's going to look really good. And the next tip is to use a sharp razor blade. And of course, all razor blades are sharp, but I mean a brand new one. So get yourself one of these. One of these came in the kit that I bought, and you're going to want to snap off the old one and use a fresh one for this whole window. You want a sharp knife. The next tip is the angle of your blade as you cut. But it's important not to have your knife perpendicular to the window and pressing too hard, but really you just want it as gentle of a slope as you can so that you don't scratch your window on the back side, and that'll give you a nice clean cut. Now that I've got the edges cut, I'm going to roll the window down so that I can trim the top edge. But before I roll the window down, I want to make sure that it doesn't damage the tint. So I'm just going to peel away from the edges and move the window down a couple inches to expose the top edge. There we go. Now I'm going to just take my razor blade and rest it right along the top of the window. The next tip is to round the corners of the tint at each of the four corners so that they're not a sharp point. I'm going to take some scissors. I'm just going to cut a little circle there about the diameter of a nickel so that that pointy edge doesn't stay pointy, and that would be a spot that's prone for the tint to peel off later on. And you can see what the corner looks like instead of a sharp pointy corner. There's that one, there's that one, here's down here at the bottom, and up there. Now I'm going to peel this liner off of the tint. So I'm going to use 2 pieces of Scotch tape, one on each side of the liner. I'll pinch them together and pull apart, and that'll peel the liner off, or begin to peel the liner off. There we go. And the next tip is to use lots of this water baby shampoo spray. As you peel this off and through the rest of the job here, keep this thing soaking wet on the inside. Constantly keep that surface wet. Wetter the better. This is the sticky side of the tint that I'm exposing. And I'm going to keep keeping that wet. Before I put this on the inside of the window, I'm going to spray the inside of the window one more time and squeegee off all the water just so that any dust that may have gotten on there in the last half hour is gone. I'm just going to take that, spray it, use my squeegee. I'm going to get any lint that may have been on there. We're going to just squeegee that off of here. I'm going to take this off of this outside window and put it on the inside. Like I said, keep it really wet. I'm going to fold this tint up a little bit and fold it against itself. All right, the next tip is to align the top of the window first. So you have a nice parallel line there. I've got it back in there. You're going to use a ton of this fluid. Keep everything soaking wet, and you want to do it kind of quick. So now that I've got that tint on there, I want to kind of poke it back in there a little bit. But now that I've got the top aligned, and you'll want a helper here, I want to peel this window tint the tint that I attached to itself. I'm going to peel it apart and keep it soaking wet. And once you've got this aligned with the top of the window, kind of squeegee it in place so it doesn't move on you. I had to have my helper, my video photographer here, help me for a second. So we roll the window up and keep this side nice and wet, keep the underside nice and wet. And I've used this to squeegee it back into the corner. I'm going to squeegee this down into place. And now it's a matter of squeegeeing this tint so it's nice and flat against the window. And if you've got too many wrinkles, too many bubbles in it, don't hesitate to pull the edge back, keeping it soaking wet on the inside, and then lightly, gently squeegee it back into place without the bubbles. And here's where I'm going to use some coffee filters in the corners, basically at the edges of the tint is where you're going to sop up the water back in there. Now that I got the big bubbles out with this squeegee and I press them out to the side, I'm now going to take this tool that I showed you earlier and keeping this thing a little tiny bit wet. There's still some small bubbles out the edge, and you're just going to press on this and squeegee them out to the end. But what's important to do is, as you do that, use your coffee filter to dry off the edges, because that liquid likes to get back in underneath the tint. And I'm only going to wet that surface that one time. I'm going to push this out to the edge. I can see some little bubbles there, so this is working great. I'm going to push those to the side, dry this off, use my coffee filter. Keep that nice and clean, nice and dry. And I'm going to use this tool over and over, and I can see lots of little bubbles and water underneath coming out to the edge. So I'm going to do this for several minutes, and like I said, I'm going to keep drying that off. Just do this all the way around the edge. I've spent a lot of time squeegeeing out little bubbles using this piece, just pressing it against the edge and getting them out. You're never going to get every single bubble out, but you do want to check to make sure you don't leave anything too big. So the way to do that, I've got a flashlight here, and I'm going to come and look at a very steep angle. And it's going to be tough to show on this video here, but I'm going to look at the new window at a really steep angle and see if I see any larger imperfections than anywhere else. And this is a good way to check if you've got any bigger bubbles that sometimes aren't obvious just looking at it. But there you go, folks. The window is tinted. It looks really good. I'm happy with it. You follow these tips, you'll have a successful tint installation yourself. Hey, if this is helpful, subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.